Devlin, Untamed.
Welcome to the podcast, people. Martin Devlin, Lachlan Waugh, iOS, it's only sport. Thank you so much for joining us. We do a live show 1 till 4 on the platform. You've got to download the platform app, subscribe to Platform Plus. You can go back and listen to that live show anytime you want. This is the condensed highlights package of, and so much going on in the world of sport today. And even some of it actually involves sport. A lot to digest. Coaches leaving. It's Mody Maor from the Breakers. Coaches dropping C-bombs. Rob Penney. The Crusaders. We had a plethora of rugby guests on the show today. Jordie Barrett, Black Fern, Luke Connor, Blues Open Side, Adrian Choate. You'll hear from Jordie on this podcast. Mardo Costo, Jason doing his Costo's Corner Rugby League predictions. He does that every day on the show. The Crusaders CEO. And Christy Doran out of the Raw Brisbane on why there is this underlying unease quite often at these press conferences involving rugby players, coaches and the journos. We start the show the same way every day. I say, tablets in hand, gather my flock. It is time for a sermon. Rob Penney, what the hell was that all about? Let's go to the mountaintop.
We live in an amazing, amazing world, and it's wasted on the crappiest generation of just spoiled idiots.
Well, a wee furore seems to have erupted around Crusaders coach Rob Penney in a press conference yesterday where questions were asked, replies were given, and the whole thing got rather tense, with Penney at the end of the presser referring to said reporter as a little C. Now, we all know what that word is. Now, I've watched the footage several times, and I can't see anything in there that's out of order from the reporter. Those were fair questions about Penney's future, about what the players think of him, about the support that he doesn't or doesn't have. And Penney, respectfully, I thought, answered all those questions. But here's the truth. Penney's comment after the event is the truth. In my 25 years of working in the sports media, there has always been a conflict between those who play and coach sport and those who report on it. The two sides are not natural bed partners. They don't like us. That's the truth. They don't like us on this side of the microphone. Most New Zealand athletes in whatever sport despise the media. And that's especially true in rugby in my experience. They hate their media obligations. They think it's a chore. Now, not all of the players are like this, but the vast majority are. Fronting press conferences, answering questions is about as much fun to them as being asked to do another after-training beep test. There has always existed an underlying tension at these things. The players mostly think the media are dicks. That's the truth. And the media mostly think that the players are uncooperative and hard work. What we saw in Christchurch yesterday is nothing. It's what happens every weekend in the Premier League, the NRL, American sport, off camera, off mic, when no one's around. What Penney said, using the C word, is what I believe most players, most rugby players and coaches in this country would say and think about most people who work in the media. The problem Penney has is that the mic wasn't switched off and the C word was clearly audible. These press conferences are not a PR exercise. Yeah, they aren't the marketing department getting there and rubbing all over you and saying, what a great job you're doing. It's not that. It's meant to be questions from the stakeholders in the game, the fans, the people who care about the game, questions being asked on our behalf. These are question and answer sessions that also do have rules. In terms, I'm talking about, of basic courtesies, respect, like any human interaction at any time. What was asked of Penney is what gets asked of every government MP every day at Parliament. And they don't overreact like that. They just know that it's part of what they do. Your job is to answer the questions and leave. Penney has every right not to like it, but it's also his job just to get on with it and then get out of there afterwards. Just because you don't like what's been asked doesn't mean those questions are wrong. And also, just because you don't like what's being asked doesn't also mean that the person that's asking it is an a-hole.
Devlin.
What do you want? We want information. Information. You won't get it.
The platform.
Lachlan. Sports news headlines. Is there any sport in the news?
Was that a rhetorical question?
Well, there's a hell of a lot of stuff that's been going on.
There's a lot of news that involves sport.
That's it. That's what I'm saying, yeah.
Really, actually. I mean, I'm not talking about results here. I'm not talking about issues on field, players getting into biffos and whatnot. I'll start off with probably the biggest story and the one that we've been plugging away at for most of today. The Crusaders have apologised to this TVNZ reporter, this One News reporter whose name is Thomas Mead, whom coach Rob Penney referred to as a C-word. This, of course, after a tense media conference that questioned his future in the role. In a statement released by the Crusaders, CEO Colin Mansbridge said, Rob Penney has since apologised to me for what he said on behalf of the Crusaders organisation. I apologise for the comments that he made regarding the reporter. I spoke to the reporter today and he has accepted our apology. Well, I hope so.
Well, the question I've got for Colin is, why has he done it? Why hasn't Rob done it? Why is he apologising?
Maybe there's a process where Rob can't do it and Colin does it.
All right, we'll ask him.
Some sort of
He's going to join us just after 2
like
o'clock, the CEO Colin.
A couple of rugby stories to get through. All Blacks legend Aaron Smith is backing Ardie Savea to be the next All Blacks captain. Of course, Savea and Scott Barrett seem to be the front runners. I mean, when we say front runners, who makes them the front runners? The media? I don't know.
I think it's pretty obvious, isn't it?
Well, what if Scott Robertson goes with, I don't know, David Havili?
No, he's made his,
Jordie Barrett.
I mean,
What if he goes with Bowden? Maybe that,
I think to be serious, don't be serious, but it's going to be a forward and it's going to be somebody that's actually been in the team away.
But what do you know?
Well, just on past experience where he's had Cody Taylor as his Crusaders captain, Scott Barrett as his captain.
My point is, we don't know. The front runners are called the front runners because the media calls them the front runners. We're speculating.
Right. Mm-hmm.
I mean, obviously, Ardie served as captain a couple of times a handful of times, I think more than 2, under Ian Foster, and Scott Barrett was, for the most part, the Crusaders captain of the last handful of years. So, yeah, it is probably, but Cody Taylor could get it, you never know. Bowden Barrett could get it, why not? Why not the halfback? Who's our halfback? What if TJ Perenara is the captain?
Could be.
He has his hands on the ball more than anyone else. The Black Ferns have demoted key stars Ruahei Demont and Ruby Tui for Saturday's test against Australia. This following last weekend's a shock defeat to Canada. Demont set to come off the bench. Ruby Tui out of the 23 altogether. The Breakers will begin their search for a new coach after incumbent Mody Maor's shock resignation from the Auckland-based Australian NBL franchise. He is leaving for a coaching job in Asia, apparently. Star striker Costa Barbarouses has extended his stay with the Wellington Phoenix for at least another season. He has an option for another after that. Isaiah Papali'i, he's at the West Tigers. He has been granted an early release from his contract. He is signing with the Penrith Panthers. Now, Papali'i will stay with the Tigers for the remainder of this season. He was meant to have one more year on his contract at the Tigers, but that year is being scrapped, and he will be joining Penrith ahead of the 2025 season. Just surfing through stuff here. There's a lot going on stuff. Chiefs prop Ruben O'Neill. I'm jumping back to Super Rugby here. But Chiefs prop Ruben O'Neill has been suspended for at least 3 weeks after being found guilty of, quote, physical abuse by the Sanzar Judicial Committee. There's news that came out earlier today, which we can talk about a little bit more during the show. But Addin Fonua-Blake, now he's out of the Warriors game this weekend, isn't he, Marty? He's got issues.
From what we hear,
issues with his ribs.
17, but from what we hear, he won't be playing ribs. No.
Yeah.
But they haven't announced that officially yet.
Okay. So just speculation, but reliable speculation, if you will. Anyway, Bayer Leverkusen's unbeaten run in football this current European club season is over. They lost the Europa League final to Atalanta 3-0, which is quite good because Atalanta knocked down by Liverpool, so it's nice to see them actually go on and win it, knowing that we lost to the team that won the whole thing. Leverkusen went through the Bundesliga unbeaten in 34 games, of course, winning the title. Now, they still have the German Cup to come. That is against who, Martin?
De Kaiserslautern.
That is on Sunday morning at 6 a.m, so they can still do the domestic double, but the treble and an unbeaten season, not to be for Bayer Leverkusen. And in the NBA, quick update in the score. The Minnesota Timberwolves up by 4. Game 1 of the Western Conference Finals Series in Minnesota. The T-Wolves leading 41-37 over the Dallas Mavericks. We'll keep you updated with that. That's what's making news, Martin.
Devlin.
Oh my goodness me!
The platform.
The C-bomb. Forget the fact that the Crusaders are 2-10. Oh no. What's really important is that at the end of a very testy press conference yesterday, Rob Penney, with the microphone still on, didn't realise that it was hot, as we call it in the business, turned around and said the C word in reference to a reporter from TVNZ who was asking those questions. CEO of the Crusaders, Colin Mansbridge, apologised to the reporter on Penney's behalf. Why wouldn't Penney do that himself, since it was him that said it, not Colin? The CEO, Colin, did join us on the show today to explain. Here he is. Why was it you that apologised to the reporter on Rob's behalf? Why didn't he do it?
Well, basically, when we connected yesterday afternoon, Rob was contrite, came to see me, explained what happened, made an apology. I know the report. I've had a wee bit to do with the reporter, and I had his phone number, so I just picked up the phone and made the call. So there was nothing. Nothing other than that in it.
Yeah, but why wouldn't he just want to do it himself, though?
Well, actually, probably the key thing was he was contrite. He spoke to me. I basically made the offer. I think if I actually said to him, Rob, you ring him now, he would have done it, but I did it. So yeah, no, there's nothing.
What was the reporter's reaction to your call?
Appreciative of the call, I think. Yeah, appreciative of the call, yeah.
And do you think that this story is an absolute beat-up, or do you think that it deserves to be a story?
I think pressure. You know what it's like, Marty, in high-performance sport. Pressure is a privilege, and I know it's a trite statement to make, but when you've been where we've been and when you are where we are, you just expect scrutiny, and you should expect scrutiny. There's no doubt about that. So I don't think there was. If we've taken the comment away, the final comment away, I think we would describe the interview as robust. It probably wasn't in line with the purpose of the connection, which was around, team naming and discussing the upcoming fixture. But it was robust, and we're up for that. So yeah, I think we talked about it before, that we would anything we're going to do it's not going to be knee jerk. It's not going to be scapegoating, and it's going to be a look at the whole system. It'll be a full review of the team, the organisation, and the whole system we operate in. It'll be high performance focused rather than political or pressure focused, and it will examine every part of the organisation and every part of our processes. Because the easy thing to find a scapegoat, make a rash decision, and appease some loud noise. That's probably not going to fix other things that would be in our system that need to be fixed.
Do you think that the questions were out of order?
I think some of the questions could have been directed at me. I think it's an interesting question you've asked me, Marty, and it's hard to answer really succinctly. I think some of them went on, so by the time we've had 4 or 5 questions, frankly, we probably should have stepped in and said, mate, I think you've got what you want. Can we talk about the Blues game? An amazing, fixture where the tension is already more than we need for that fixture. We are so excited by the Blues being here. Home game, we've got our Hall of Fame function Friday afternoon. So there's a lot at stake here just on the game. And I think the information had been gathered reasonably early. So I thought it's a little bit relentless. But is that out of order? I don't know. I'm not sure we should be in a position to answer those questions.
Do you think, though, that it's your place to direct what questions are going to be asked, or is that not your role at all? And the role of your employees is just simply to answer those questions in the best way that they possibly can?
I think in a situation like that, we've said, do you want to come in and meet the coach and have a conversation about naming of the team for the week and discussing the upcoming fixture against the Blues? That's absolutely the purpose of that stand-up. Now, invariably, it doesn't go exactly to script, so to speak. So I think this is again where was Rob as well supported? I mean, I feel personally that I probably could have done a little bit more in terms of support before he attended that conference, with the gift of hindsight. Do we direct all the messaging? I don't think that's appropriate. I think,
He must have known these questions were coming. That's what I'm getting at, Colin. I mean, it's not like, look, and you know the way the media works these days. It's all about clickbait. The guy that asked the questions, you could tell that he had them written on his phone. Like either he's thought of that or his editors thought of that. So these are the questions, and he's just answering them, asking them one after the other. So, normally what happens in these things is, and I've been at a million of these things where somebody will step in and say, okay, you've got the answer to that question, move on from that. But Rob must have known that these questions were coming because they've been fired at him just about every single weekend.
Yeah, but they've probably been more than... You're right, Marty. They have been fired at him every weekend. And he was prepared for questions about other topics. There's plenty of topics about rugby in the media at the moment, and he was prepared for some of those. He was prepared to a point for these questions. He was prepared for a point. I think the questioning was reasonably relentless, and you're right. We could have, as an organisation, we could have jumped in and said, hey, mate, thanks. I think you've got the answers you want. Can we come back to the topic of the Blues fixture and the game this weekend and the naming, the team that's been named? Yeah, we could have done that.
Do you think that he was doing his job, or was he being unprofessional in your eyes, the reporter?
I think the reporter. Sport isn't his. Some of the questions were looking to generate. Not looking to generate insight into how the team was preparing.
No, not at all. No, these are just clickbait. The answers are clickbait so that then whatever news organisation he works for can put it on their website as a big banner headline about Rob Penney and his job being under threat. I mean, that's obvious to everyone watching that. But is that behaviour unprofessional from the journalist, or is he just doing his job?
Oh, Marty, you're asking the wrong person that. You are much better qualified to answer that. And I know that's a typical one where you'd say, well, it's not, I think one of the questions that was asked yesterday, and Rob turned around and gave a response, and the reporter said something along the lines of, well, I'm not a coach, can you give me some insight into that? I would say, in response to that question you've just asked, I'm not a journalist, and I think the best people to comment on journalism is journalists. Whenever I've made a comment, I've got myself in trouble. So mate, I actually think you're better at making that judgment than me. Genuinely, I believe that.
To hear the full interview, download the platform at the App Store. Via Platform Plus, you can go back and listen to the whole show and all of the interviews in full. Greg Martin, every single Thursday on the program, the former Wallaby fullback, Triple M at breakfast host. A lot to talk about. First and foremost, when you've been married for 30-something years and your husband or wife goes away for 3 weeks, it's kind of like a holiday. I mean, that's just what it is. I mean, you spend so much time together. Or is it one of those terrible experiences where you don't know what the hell goes on? Where's that? How do I fix that? Well, how does that work? Where's the food? What's that? I don't normally do this. Where are the towels? A floundering husband on his own for 3 weeks, eating takeaways and doing very little housework. Is that how it goes? Greg Marto? Greg Martin awake, so welcome back, mate. I hear Mrs. Marto is off for 3 weeks. What's happening?
Mate, it hasn't happened for a while, and any empty nester would be able to tell you it's a strange old thing when you get home and your house is all yours for 3 weeks. But I realised that Mrs. Marto must do all the shopping because there was no food in the house when she left. But lucky I live next to a pub.
Yeah, it's the admin details, isn't it, that get taken care of. I mean, because we're big picture, Greg, aren't we? Let's be honest as men. We're much bigger picture.
Yes, we are. And the kitchen. I've bought a heap of paper plates for the next 3 weeks. I don't have to do any washing up. Actually, I mentioned it on radio on our show this morning, and I had a lot of offers, blokes wanting to drop me food parcels if they can come and drink with me. So things should go okay, mate. I shouldn't start.
Let's just go back to Suncorp a couple of weeks ago. Random men wanting to sit down with you and beer. This doesn't necessarily go that well.
No, it doesn't. They're impressed by what I sound like, and then they meet me, and
it's always disappointing, isn't it? It's always yeah. Yes.
When you meet first, like it's when you ring those call centres, you go, God, she sounds all right, but you just know.
Yeah.
Anyway.
So your Reds, mate, we spoke about this last week, going to Fiji and winning that game. You couldn't do it, so now you've got a couple of massive matches in store.
Yeah, well, we should win both of those, but I thought that last week. I thought it the last when we played Moana Pacifica. I thought it when they played the Force. We seem to lose these games we shouldn't lose, and then we play some of your top-line Kiwi teams and we perform. They made a heap of changes. Mate, what's going on? This thing only goes, Super Rugby only goes for 3 months. Why do you need a rest? Like, I watch these NRL guys play 26 weeks and then finals, and they don't need a rest. Well, they probably do need a rest, but they don't get one because they're professionals. We went over there and made 8 changes to our team. This is the Reds in Fiji. Took them lightly. Why would you go? And you just know they got 2 early tries, and we were stuffed. We were rattled. I don't get the Reds. They offer promise, and then they steal it away from us. It's so disappointing. But the other thing is, we'll finish in the top 8. But what's the use of having a top 8 and a 12-team comp? I suppose you've already spoken about this.
In the meantime, a week today, New Zealand Rugby is going to vote on its future. Are you following this story?
It's what?
It's going to vote, well, supposedly on its future. A brand new board of governance is what's meant to come.
Is this the players want to run the game thing?
This is it, yeah.
Yeah. But these are the players that have to have minders to tell them where to be, what to do every minute of the day, and they think they can run a professional game of rugby. Anyway, but actually, what you keep telling me about a couple of the people at the top of New Zealand Rugby, maybe it is a good thing.
Well, I mean, you've got a game in crisis. You've got a game that is, obviously struggling against other sports that are intruding on its traditional supporter base and everything else. It needs money. But the best thing about it is all the people involved are sitting around a table, bickering, pointing fingers and insulting each other.
This is extraordinary. You're saying, and there's all these stories, so it's coming through to the Australian media, these stories about how rugby's struggling and leagues starting to take over. How can you stuff up? We look over, and you know how rugby struggles here because every AFL and rugby league are so dominant. We look over and go, how could you stuff up rugby in New Zealand? It's a religion. How have they gotten to this point that rugby can't be the most dominant game? Is it because of the laws? What is it?
Well, let me put on my Mark Robinson CEO hat for a second here, Greg.
Yes.
In this space at this time, we're working as hard as we possibly can to create new pathways for those synergies.
Oh, all right, there's your problem.
There it is, there it is. So what's on the menu tonight, mate? She's gone away. Let me tell you a couple of things. The bed won't be made. The duvet might be pulled up, but Mrs. Marto makes that bed regularly, every single day, right? That won't be made. That's number one, right? Towels will be left probably half scrunched on the towel dryer, the towel dryer, right? They won't be neatly folded in the bathroom. That's number 2, right?
There's 2 on the floor in my vision right now. I'm in the kitchen. There's 2 towels on the floor in the kitchen already.
There is a good chance that after a meal is had in the lounge on a table where your feet were beside it while you're eating, that plate stays there probably longer than it normally would.
With 2 empty stubbies on it.
And then in terms of the whole kitchen experience, everything is piled into the dishwasher however it goes, and at some stage that will get switched on.
I'll be using the dishwasher and cleaning the house approximately 3 hours before she arrives home in 3 weeks' time. That will be it.
After all of this time that you've been married, is this like a holiday for both of you?
I believe so. She's with the daughter, which makes her happy. And I'm on my own, which makes me extraordinarily happy. So, it looks pretty good to me, this sort of life, this bachelor life. I won't say I can't remember why I got married, but it's quite good. It's quite good.
The Tight Five.
5 separate sporting topics, Lachlan, roughly a minute or so on each. And then when the bell reminds us, we'll go on to the next one. This is a cracking game in Minnesota here. 104-102. Dallas lead with 1:49 to go. The Rob Penney presser. Well, we've spent a fair bit of time talking about it. Talk about it, Lachlan. Mody Maor leaves the Breakers. How much of a surprise is that? What a bummer is this? How easy or not is he to replace? Bayer Leverkusen lost Achtung, men gotten, Atalanta. Addin Fonua-Blake. Now, I have had a little whisper, a birdie, the same birdie wordy that whispered to me that Jet Cleary was coming, has told me that Addin Fonua-Blake won't be playing this weekend. The official word is ribs. The unofficial word is that there's something else going on. I don't know. I don't know who to believe here, but I am now glued to that lineup on Sunday to see whether or not he does play. Black Ferns, 6 changes. Rohe Demont on the bench. Ruby Tui dropped after losing to Canada. Costa has re-signed for the Phoenix. Another year for him. Aaron Smith is back and Ardie Savea is All Black coach. Got a lot to do. Let's kick it off with the Rob Penney presser. And Colin Mansbridge on the back of that. Are you satisfied with what Colin had to say there?
Oh, in part, I like Colin Mansbridge.
I do too, mate.
But
this is what we got to establish. It doesn't matter that we like these people. The job is to ask the questions, get the answers, write a story about it, make news about it. That's what the job is.
I'm just enamoured by this NBA game. Dallas, they just travelled. So they've just given the ball away. So Minnesota have it down 2 with 1:23 left. Anyway, look, no. So anything I say about Colin Mansbridge is purely from a professional perspective. I thought the interview, he struggled to answer your questions, and I didn't think they were too hard-hitting. I thought they were just standard. And I think if you're in a position of leadership, whether it's a sports team, a business, whatever it is, assuming you're good at your job, you're strong, you're firm, you're defiant, whatnot, you've got an element of Steve Chew about how you operate, then you shouldn't find it too difficult to answer questions. And if that involves not throwing someone under the bus, but more or less pointing the finger at someone maybe within your organisation who's done something wrong and saying, yeah, they've done something wrong and they know they've done something wrong, then I don't think you should have an issue being able to say that. Point is, I think Colin Mansbridge, I got the feeling he was trying to protect Rob Penney a little bit too much in that. There were moments where you asked questions like, can you tell the journos what questions to ask? Something about Rob Penney here and there, and he sort of would go on and it felt like he'd waffle a little bit. And it just, to me, suggested he doesn't really want to sit there and admit, yeah, Rob Penney's done something wrong, and as a whole, as an organisation, we've in turn sort of done something wrong, and we've got to kind of admit that.
Okay, who's more wrong? Is Rob Penney wrong or is the reporter wrong?
I don't think either's wrong in the sense that either deserves punishment. I actually, look, when I first saw it, my immediate reaction was, because I really like Rob Penney, and I actually think he's better than the record suggests at the Crusaders as a coach. So my immediate reaction was, stuff this journo. And then I listened to the questions.
See, I'm the same. Straight away, my immediate reaction was that journo would be a twat. And then I listened to it and I thought, no, he's actually, that's fair.
Yeah, I thought,
that's fair.
Actually, good on him. He's asked questions that, they're hard to answer and they get under your skin, but I thought they're good questions. And Christy said something brilliant at the start of your chat with him. He said, if you're a journo who, what's the term he used, is worth a grain of salt or something like that, he said, you will ask questions that get under people's skins because that's your job.
Part of your job.
So no, I don't think the reporter did anything wrong. I don't think Rob Penney did anything wrong because what he did, anyone would have done. Anyone who got annoyed at some questions, coach, player, whatever, you're right. If we were chatting to someone behind closed doors, you're going to call someone a C word or an F this or an F that or whatever.
It just so happened to be.
It just so happened to be with the microphone still on.
Leverkusen lost. Are you shocked? That's their first loss all year.
Yes and no. I mean, they lost to Atalanta, who's the team that knocked Liverpool.
Yeah, I just naturally assumed that if they've done 50-something unbeaten games in a season, that they're going to bowl the cup final, they're going to bowl the Europa League final, and that they're going to end up unbeaten. But yeah, they got dicked. They got dicked and under us.
It's a little bit like when we lost our first game in the 1920 season when we won the Premier League. We went the first 27-28 games unbeaten. And when we lost heavy to Watford 3-0 away. And I just wonder, when teams go on these runs, you get closer and closer to the defeat. We said it a lot ahead of the Ireland All Blacks game last year. Sure, you could be on an unbeaten run, but it means you're another game closer.
Away from, that's right, from
one game away from losing. And when Ireland lost, it felt heavy. When we lost to Watford and Liverpool lost to Watford many years ago in the league, it felt heavy. This feels heavy because, I don't know, maybe the players get into a state of comfort knowing, we'll get it. Because Bayer Leverkusen have also won a lot of games or drawn games where they've scored very late goals.
That's exactly right.
So that when you do that and you're almost you're on the other side of what's the word? You got some luck.
You got lady luck, mate.
Lady luck. There you go.
Mody Maor. This was a real surprise, real shock. Not that he's been headhunted to go to Japan for another job because he's a damn good coach, but I'm going to miss him. I really enjoyed the interviews with him. I always said to you, Lachlan, it was one of the, and it was the interviews were never prickly, but you always felt when you're chatting to Mody that you had to be on your A game. You had to bring some good questions and you had to think about what you're asking him. He just didn't tolerate fools. I really liked that about the guy, chatting to him.
Yeah, I remember you asked him a question and one of his answers was, "That's a good question."
There was
4 or 5 seconds of silence and he said, "Oh, that's my answer."
That's my answer. That's a good question, yeah. No, so look, more on this after the New Sport and Weather. Jordan Mills on it. Look, is he going to be easy to replace? Remember, he was the assistant coach, okay? So whether or not they promote from within the Breakers as well, he wasn't like headhunted to be that coach. He was the assistant coach, remember?
Yeah,
and
but
then Dan Shamir
he was
archered and he actually took over that position.
He was maybe a high-profile assistant, and when he got the job, it was kind of like, oh yeah, because he'd done a lot of media, people knew him. There was a big deal made about him when Dan Shamir brought him over. I'd say it's a real shame. I like him as well, and I think there was good things that were going to happen with him as the coach. So it is a shame. I would say this, though. It's another reminder that it's a bit like the same with the Phoenix in the A-League. I think it's not as extreme, but it's similar to the Warriors in the NRL that, look, these franchises, these New Zealand franchises and Trans-Tasman comps aren't, big draw cards for head coaching jobs or roster spots and whatnot. And on a global scale in particular with basketball and football, we don't really matter. There's a lot of leagues and jobs out there that are much more enticing. Right, so it's just another harsh reminder.
We're a feeder league is what it is.
It's another harsh reminder.
We are a feeder league. Couple of quick ones to go. AFB. Is he going to front on Sunday? A text has come in here. I reckon there's a chance that he goes next week, but Fisher Harris will come here the following week, both on compassionate grounds. And if it all hinges on the Tigers letting Papali'i go early to the Panthers.
I'd be surprised if Fisher Harris came early.
Yeah,
Fonua-Blake leaving early, that wouldn't shock me at all.
Look, if he's not here at the end of the season, I won't at all be surprised. I've kind of had the impression, and I don't know, this is just me thinking out loud, but I've kind of had the impression that Addin Fonua-Blake has wanted to go from the time he said he's leaving.
Yeah.
And
because
the Warriors,
when he left, he submitted a request to be released.
That's it. And then he about-faced in 24 hours, remember?
And then he said, oh, no, look, I'll stay here for 2025. 2024, excuse me. So from the start, his plan was to go now.
Yeah.
Was to go into last year or whenever it was.
Look, if the guy doesn't want to be there, you got to get him gone. That's the way I feel about it. Aaron Smith backing Ardie Savea. Well, that's no great surprise, is it? I mean, they're great mates. So, I
like his logic. His logic is that Ardie Savea is the best player in the world.
There you go.
It's good logic.
It's the Alan Shearer logic. Put your best player in the team as captain because he's going to be playing every week. Finally, Costa re-signing to the Phoenix for another year with a year option.
Your boy.
My boy Costa. I think this is good for the Phoenix as well. He's really popular. He scored 13 goals. He may find it hard to replicate next season, this season, but if that's the case, well, then they won't give him the option.
He's got older legs, but no, it's reward for a very good season. He's played well under Chiefy. And I'd say this, that the coach, Giancarlo Italiano, how did that go in? Jeez, just quickly, the Timberwolves, they're only down by 2 now, 9.9 seconds left, but Dallas Mavericks have the ball. So Dallas pretty much have the sewn up, but just quickly.
Well, hey, the Pacers had it sewn up yesterday. All they had to do was inbound, get their free, and they threw the ball away. That's right.
Well, they're milking the clock here, Dallas. There we go. So no, with Giancarlo Italiano, he would absolutely want a bloke who's given him 13 goals to stick around.
Jordie Barrett. Second 5 for the Hurricanes, and he'll be wearing that jersey too for the All Blacks. You just know it. Hurricanes. Massive match tomorrow night as far as Super Rugby goes. This is the Chiefs in Hamilton. Now, Chiefs have lost 3 games. Hurricanes have lost 2. There is a good jostle going on right at the top of the points table to who finishes 1 and 2, and that's really crucial. You might get a home quarter, but the idea is to also get a home semi-final. So much riding on this game. So we talked to Jordie all about that, plus his brother Bowden is back. And again, as a professional rugby player, what does he know? How involved is he in anything that's going to happen a week from today in terms of the RPA? And then them sitting down and trying to figure out this whole governance schmozzle with New Zealand rugby. Jordie Barrett. How important is it to get that 1 or 2 spot to actually secure that?
Yeah, it's massively important for us. In particular, we've been screeching for in the past few years is trying to get a home quarter final, and I mean, we've achieved that, which is a great bonus. We've learned it's not easy when you've got to go away in a quarter-final or a semi-final. So, we're stoked to have wrapped that one up. And then I guess the destiny's in our hands now. And we can control that if we get the next couple of weeks right and put ourselves right in the thick of it to hopefully go and have some home finals.
What have you learned from those matches, the defeats against the Blues and also away the Brumbies?
Blues and the Brumbies, yeah, we were just a little bit off with our height and contact areas. When you're playing a big combative side who come straight through the front door, if you're a little bit off with your height and let them get over some gain line, and it's just a sniff they need. So, that was a massive challenge against those two teams. We just got our contact areas a little bit wrong, and the great thing is we learned those lessons then, and we've been working hard on that the past few weeks, and hopefully we can build on that going into finals.
Is this Hurricane side better this year than it was last year? And if so, how can how do you actually quantify that?
I certainly feel so. Yeah, there's a great depth of, I guess, improved rugby players and improved people. I feel like in the building, and guys have grown so much in the past 24 and 12 months, and we're seeing that every day, different guys stepping up, and I think it's evident in the way a lot of the guys are playing. So it's more of a collective effort at the moment, and we're very well coached. So I certainly have a good feeling about where we're at the moment.
Are you fitter than you were last year as a team, do you think? Is that what Clark has brought?
I'm not sure. I wouldn't say fitter in terms of physically. We train hard every single preseason, and I guess maybe certain areas around the performance were probably just a little bit more growth in terms of our mental application and the way we prepared during the week. And I think that's evident in the way of we're playing in the weekend. So I'd say we're just a bit more resilient, which is quite nice.
Have you spoken to Bode since he's been back?
Yeah, I have. Yep. Yeah, spoke to Bodie when he got back. So he's up in Auckland, taking over, getting some training done with the Blues. So it's good to have him back, happy and healthy.
And keen to play or not?
Is he?
Yeah.
Yeah, I imagine so. He's contracted with New Zealand Rugby, and whether it be for Coastal or just taking over with training at the Blues or playing for the Blues, I'm not sure. We'll probably find out in the next week or so.
Are you happy to keep playing 12? If Razor said to you, right, I've got the number 9 to number 15 jerseys in front of me here, you get to pick which one you want, which would it be?
Yeah. Look, I'm very happy to be playing 12, and look, there's absolutely no givens and certainties within the All Blacks, and I know I've just got to go out and keep performing every week and try and earn my way into the team. But I'm happy to be playing 12, and I enjoy that position.
At the start of the season, you were asked about the World Cup final, and you said, yeah, it's still hurt, and you still thought about it. Do you still think about it, or has the season just overcome all of that?
Sure. I mean, you can't hide it. We're all human. Something will pop up on your phone, or you have a chat about someone or something, and it always pops into your mind at some stage. But that's just the way things go. And look, I'm just enjoying the way things are going here with the Hurricanes in Wellington. Loving my rugby at the moment, and looking forward to the next few weeks ahead. You
weren't in the stadium to watch the Phoenix last weekend, were you?
Yeah, I went and actually got a ticket with a couple of the Canes boys, and went and sat on those yellow seats. They were full to the brim, so it was a great match. I felt for them. I felt like they played all the football and had a lot of entries, but that's sport. There's no certainties, like we've just spoken about. So absolutely gutted for them. A great group of men too. Often see them out in Upper Hutt, share the same facility, so they had a great year.
What was that crowd reaction like in the 99th minute, mate? Have you heard anything like that at the stadium before?
No, I haven't. We're actually talking about that. It's probably one of the best things we've almost seen live at a sporting event. It was pretty cool. People were standing up, walking down the stairs into the concourse, and it just erupted. So it was a pretty cool moment. To hear the full interview, download the platform at the App Store. Via Platform Plus, you can go back and listen to the whole show and all of the interviews in full. I said it at the start of the show on the sermon, and I'll repeat it again. Press conferences between rugby players, rugby coaches, from my experience of covering sport for 25 years in this country, there is always an underlying tension. It's never a hugely friendly experience. It can be. There is the odd time, the odd people, the odd player, the odd coach, and everyone gets on. But
when the difficult questions need to be asked, you can honestly cut the air with a knife at times. It happened at the Rugby World Cup last year, asking Jason Ryan a question, which I put to him ahead of the Ireland test. Simply that, if the All Blacks lost that test, statistically, they'd be the worst team we'd ever send overseas to a World Cup. And was he feeling any of that kind of pressure? Well, you could feel it in the reaction from him, Aaron Smith, and Rieko Ioane, who was sitting there on the panel. It's not like we're all mates. It's not like we're friends. That's not what it is. And sometimes the questions are uncomfortable. Well, in the end, who was right, who was wrong yesterday? I thought that the press conference, from what I saw, from what I heard of all of those questions, I didn't see anything at all wrong with it, apart from Rob Penney dropping the C-bomb at the end. Christy Doran, the Raw out of Brisbane, has had a hell of a time with Dave Rennie and Eddie Jones in particular when they were Wallaby coaches. He has gone through exactly this on more than one occasion, where there has been a real tense standoff at a stand-up presser. Here's Christy. Is it a natural thing that us on this side of the microphone and those on the other side of the microphone may not necessarily get on?
Muddy, you're not wrong, but I'll tell you what, if you're a journo and you're worth a grain of salt, you're always going to ask some questions that get under the skins of people, particularly under pressure. And yeah, you're right, I've copped a couple in the last 24 months. Dave Rennie called me out, not necessarily enjoying some line of questioning and stories that I was writing when they were dropping like flies on the training paddock and on the field, and then followed it up last year with Eddie Jones about 10 months ago when I kind of questioned him around Carter Gordon and his selection, an untried, untested rookie 10 who ultimately went to the World Cup but was thrown in the deep end in the Bledisloe Cup. And Eddie Jones said, if you don't know anything about rugby, don't talk to me. So, yeah, it's not always a happy relationship with the coach, but you can understand it when people are under pressure.
In terms of their interaction with Eddie Jones, and this was also about when the team left for the World Cup and the Akubras and everything else, and I remember him again having a real slap at the media saying, why don't you guys write something positive? You're always writing something negative. And it goes back to what you're saying, isn't it? That the job on this side of the microphone isn't to be part of the PR team. There are people who get handsomely paid for that. What are the tactics behind a guy like him addressing the media or addressing you like that? What's he trying to achieve, do you think, Eddie Jones, when he was doing that?
Well, I think he lost the plot, and he actually even admitted that later on, that he said, I didn't get that one right. And I know that his media advisor previously, who wasn't working with him at the time, was when he first arrived back in Australia, but then there was somewhat of a falling out. They weren't impressed. They didn't think that was the Eddie Jones that we've known for many, many years, who generally speaking likes to control the narrative and look like he's in control. He didn't. And he and his media manager at the time had some tactics, and he went completely off script at that time. And the crazy thing about that situation is that Rugby Australia had not decided that around where they were going to have the World Cup squad announcement. Generally speaking, it's a big kind of deal where several dozen journos will be there that will ask all the questions that are needed over a half an hour period. That wasn't the case last year. They announced it in Darwin, and they only told the media that they were heading to Darwin a few days earlier. And at that point in time, flights were about $10,000 a pop, which is a lot of money. So no one decided to go. It was over Zoom, and you could only ask one question. And naturally, people have different questions. You can't follow it up. And so therefore, it was the first time that any journo really had the opportunity to ask, hang on, why is Quade Cooper being left out? How did you get onto him? Did he answer a phone call? You weren't allowed to answer a follow-up. And that was, I think, an error from Rugby Australia. And Eddie Jones didn't quite understand that opportunity was missed, because in his eyes, he didn't do anything wrong by dropping these blokes at the time. And maybe in reflection down the track, months down the track, maybe he would think that he did get that selection wrong. But that was a Rugby Australia trying to control the narrative around how do we get away with not feeling the heat with some questions. And the public wanted to know why Michael Hooper wasn't called until nearing 10 p.m. at night, that he wasn't going to make the World Cup squad. So he could be construe the whole line of questioning as negative as he wanted. Unfortunately, as it turned out, they won 2 from 9, and I think the journalists that were there were justified in the end, given how the results all played out.
Who was the journalists that broke the story about him going to Japan? Because remember, he denied that the whole time too and actually made several personal attacks against that guy.
Well, it wasn't just that guy. Like Tom Deason from the Sydney Morning Herald, he had the initial story, but it had been bubbling away that he was going to Japan for months and months, and it was reported. As it turned out, my boss, Tony Harper, asked the first question at the press conference in Lyon following their catastrophic loss to Wales in the third World Cup pool match, saying, had he spoken to Japan before the World Cup started? And he said, I don't know what you're talking about, mate. And over the course of the next 2 to 3 and 4 weeks, and indeed the next 2 months, he continued to deny that he did any wrongdoing. So you have to keep asking those questions because clearly they weren't being answered. And it was a sideshow. It did take away from the Wallabies World Cup campaign, but that's something that he has to deal with. And ultimately, history doesn't paint a very positive picture when it comes to Eddie Jones and now the Wallabies 2.0.
Again, though, it hasn't put you off, has it? I mean, do you feel after it happens, though, like this guy, who was called the C word yesterday, I mean, it doesn't make you feel great afterwards, doesn't it? Even though you're doing your job. I mean, as a human, it's always, like you get called that by somebody. It's never a nice experience.
Well, you only have to go onto social media to think that I would have been called all sorts of things, and certainly on our comment section, the Raw as well. Look, it doesn't affect me. It would affect some people. What I found interesting about that was that Rob Penney didn't know who that journalist was. And sometimes when you have a relationship and they ask a tough question, then there's a respect that's built. If it's someone that's come from nowhere to ask a question like that, you might get put off. But, yeah, that sort of language is unacceptable. And I think if Rob Penney had his time again, he probably wouldn't use that language, certainly not within a earshot of a hot microphone. Journos know that they're not always loved. That's fine, but I think respect is the real thing that you need from both parties here.
Lachlan, in the meantime, what is your favourite game?
What is more chance of happening?
I present 2 scenarios. You tell me out of the 2 what is more chance of happening. The Timberwolves down 1 to the Dallas Mavericks win it all from here. Not just the Western Conference. They take out the whole NBA championship, okay? Or the Bulldogs beat the Dragons tonight, kicking off round 12 of the NRL.
Bulldogs beat the Dragons. Certainly. Great chance that happens.
Timberwolves are the best team in the NBA, mate.
Well, they're down 1-0.
Yeah, okay, well, perhaps not the best team today, but you would have thought after taking out the Next! What is more chance of happening? The Timberwolves win it all from here in the NBA, or Rob Penney will still be Crusaders coach next year?
Rob Penney will still be Crusaders coach next year.
Absolute confidence in that?
Yeah, I do, yeah.
Why?
Well, he's backed him, has the CEO Colin Mansbridge, he's backed him all year. And I just can't imagine they would. I just don't think they would. I don't know, like who is out, like, it's maybe a silly thing to say because it's not like Rob Penney's had a great tenure, but who's out there that they would bring him that would immediately turn their fortunes around? Out there and available. There's actually probably quite a few people, to be honest. I just don't think they'll do it. I really don't.
Next!
We don't sack coaches in this country.
What is more chance of happening, ladies and gentlemen? All right. Rob Penney will still be Crusaders coach next year. Or this time next week, on this particular day, the RPA and New Zealand Rugby Board bury the hatchet, resolve their differences, and agree to get on with things.
No, that's not happening.
That's not happening?
No, that's not happening.
But these are intelligent
Are they?
men and women, Lachlan, with the game's best interest at heart.
Say it with a straight face.
These are people that aren't suffocated by selfish self-entitlement. These are people who actually genuinely want to foster and develop rugby in New Zealand. That's their kaupapa. That is what they're actually into. That is why they're actually doing this job in the first...
Next!
What is more chance of happening? The Rugby Players Association and the New Zealand Rugby Board bury the hatchet next week and they go, sit down and go, this is embarrassing for the game. It's embarrassing for all of us involved. We are actually going to plough forward, holding hands together for the betterment of the sport, or the new Waterfront Stadium in Auckland gets the go-ahead and that gets built.
No, it's not happening. Come on.
So you think there's more chance that the RPA and NZR and the board are going to sit down
Yeah.
and cuddle up next Thursday than the Auckland Waterfront Stadium.
How many decades have they talked about a waterfront stadium?
I've only been alive 60 years.
So more than 6 decades then.
Yeah. Well, look, a new stadium in Auckland has been mooted for 100 and something years, mate, right?
Is Eden Park even that old? 100 and something years? I don't think it is. But I don't think it's out of the realms of possibility that actually NZRPA, NZR, provincial unions, all these people actually gather around the table and go, let's just get this over with. It's sorted out. Look, the Auckland Waterfront Stadium's been talked about for so long and it's never happened. And, Mark Robinson's, potentially given it the kiss of death where he said, I want the Waterfront Stadium. I want that over Eden Park. Which means that it won't happen.
Next!
Because nothing happens under his leadership.
The new Waterfront Stadium in Auckland, the big U-shaped one, gets the go-ahead and we end up... Or Man United win the FA Cup final this Sunday against Man City. What is more chance of happening out of those two? Well, okay, this is what you normally say. You normally say things like, that's only a one-off game. Anything can possibly happen. It's a game of football. One goal can decide it. What you're talking about is you're talking about committees, subcommittees. You're talking about pathway managers. You're talking about ex-coms. You're talking about the commercial bollocks that goes along with every decision like this, the donutters, the consultants, the reviewers, not only to mention all the other self-interested groups that are going to try and clip the ticket on the stadium. All of that has to happen. Or Man United beat Man City in the FA Cup final this week.
Yeah, but this is Man United we're talking about.
Yeah, against Man City.
So there's more chance that the stadium gets built.
You're joking me.
No.
Do
you really give you guys much of a chance against Man City?
I give us zero chance.
There you go.
But against,
there's more than zero chance that stadium gets built on the waterfront.
There's less than zero chance. I give us zero chance. There's less than zero chance of that stadium.
Is that mathematically possible? Less than zero chance?
It is in terms of this argument. There is no chance that that stadium gets built in our lifetimes. None.
Not yours. Maybe mine.
What is more chance of happening?
Next!
The Auckland Waterfront Stadium gets built, or there's a new harbour crossing in your lifetime. Or let me add a light rail to the airport, or a subway system that connects all the Auckland suburbs. Or Wellington fix their water leaks. What is more chance of happening?
Actually, out of all those, the what is it called? The airport tram link thingy, that could. The harbour crossing, a second one could, because it probably kind of has to happen. There's a subway system being built in Auckland. Oh my gosh! What are we hiring all of Japan's workforce to come here and build something? Our workforce isn't bloody doing that.
That's our podcast for today. Thank you so much for listening. If you want to listen to the entire show, 1 till 4, Monday to Friday, download the Platform app, and via Platform Plus you can go back and listen to whatever shows over however many weeks at your leisure, at your listening pleasure. Platform Plus. First thing to do though is download the Platform app.
Devlin. You better believe it. The Platform.